Hi everyone, Rajee Narinesingh here, transgender activist, author, and actress. And you probably recognize me from the reality show Botched on the E Network. You all know I got to get that one in. So I'm coming to you from my very humble home here in South Florida, USA. And I'm sure by now all of you have heard about the horrific fire that happened in France last week. You know, the Notre Dame Cathedral burning. It was a really bad fire. They did save the two main structures, and I guess I'll call them artifacts. They claim to have the crown of thorns that Jesus wore when he was being crucified, and some other things that are, I would say, very important to a lot of people around the world. I mean, the cathedral, this building, and these artifacts is what I'm calling them, represent faith, like faith to so many people around the world. The Christian religion is the largest religion here on the planet. And then after that, I think it's Islam and then Hinduism and so on and so on. But even beyond being Christian, I think for most people, they can see the value in something like the Notre Dame Cathedral or the Crown of Thorns because of the fact that it represents faith and goodness and humanity and a belief in something bigger, larger than yourself, which I know lives in all of us. And so I think for most people, they see the value in things like this, things that represent faith, that not only represents faith, but it actually it stimulates faith within us as human beings. So for me, I would say I feel like I've always been, for most of my life, from very, very young, been connected to the higher power, to God. My mother is Christian. My dad was Hindu. And growing up, my sister and I, we would go to church with my mom on Sundays. We do Hindu things with my dad, pujas, which mean prayers, with my dad. And then in my late teens, early 20s, I joined the Buddhist religion. I practiced Buddhism for a few years, and I kind of moved away from that. Although I still chant sometimes because chanting is really good when it comes to like meditating and that focus and really having that focused meditative prayer. The mantras are really good to use. Very helpful in the busy world that we live in. But so after Buddhism, I kind of moved away from that and I just started what I call this spiritual journey, like growing spiritually. And I started to read books and watch videos and listen to tapes from people that I call like spiritual gurus, Louise Hay and Miriam Williamson and Deepak Chopra and Gary Zukav, and oh my God, the list goes on and on. Esther Hicks Abraham, and we can't forget Dr. Ernest Holmes, who wrote The Science of Mind. And actually, the center that I go to now, the spiritual center, is a Science of Mind spiritual center. People from all over come to that center and all walks of life, different religions, races, ages, young, old, rich, poor, middle class, all walks of life that come to the center. And, beyond religion, what Dr. Ernest Holmes keyed into is the universal laws that no matter what religion, they work. They're working whether you are aware of them or not. Conscious of them and consciously using them to create the life that you want or not. They're working regardless. And so you could be, I guess I would say using them by default, just by just not even consciously being aware of them, you're using them. And so I think what Dr. Ernest Holmes has helped so many of us in the science of mind, I would say science of mind philosophy or belief, is that, it helps us to tune into using the universal laws in a conscious way, like to create what it is that you want and desire for your life. So that's kind of where I am now. I call it like the PhD of spirituality. I'm not so much religious anymore as far as like following doctrine. I definitely believe that I am spiritual, very spiritual, and plugged in to, the higher power, to God. Plugged in, like plugged in. Because God is in all of us. So anyway, I say all of that to say that last week I noticed something and it had me scratching my head a little bit. And I wanted to give you all a background on like where I stand when it comes to like religion and like a place like the Notre Dame Cathedral and my spirituality, so you don't take me wrong when I say this. Okay. So within about 24 hours after the fire happened at the Notre Dame Cathedral, might have been a little more than 24, $1 billion was raised to repair that building, that structure. And I couldn't help but to think, because I'm a poet and I know it, I couldn't help to think in my mind, $1 billion for the steeple and fuck the people. $1 billion for the steeple and fuck the people. What I mean by that, and don't get me wrong, I think that the Notre Dame Cathedral should absolutely be restored and taken care of. But I couldn't help to think about all of the people in France that have been protesting for weeks about the economy and the middle class and the poor barely making it, trying to make it, and the inflation and like the pay rate as opposed to inflation, and the fuel going up and all the different issues, and we have no money. And then in a matter of 24 hours, a little more, $1 billion appeared and was thrown at this building. Can you imagine if $1 billion was put into feeding all the hungry people in the world? Was put into organizations to help people that are barely making it and barely surviving, the working poor. There are so many people that are working their ass off and still are barely making it in this world. Can you imagine what that $1 billion would have done to help so many human beings? Interesting how people put their money where they want to put their money. And you know what? Everyone has a right to spend their money the way they want it. But it really has me questioning our priorities as a human race. It really does. Because I don't know. I just think that we as a human race need to really reevaluate our priorities and where we put value, like where we place value, the things that we place value on. $1 billion for the steeple and fuck the people. I'm sorry. I just had to talk about this because it's been on my mind since last week. Like I said, yes, Notre Dame, I'm so bad with my French. And believe it or not, my great-great-grandmother on my mother's side was French, was from Alsace-Lorraine. But anyway, so yeah, definitely repair it. I mean, by all means, there's so many people that come from all around the world. They travel to France to see the Notre Dame Cathedral. And, that's like tomato. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. Anyway, yeah, and so it's an important thing, an important place that should be taken care of. It should be restored, repaired, all of that. But just, it's amazing how that rich and poor thing, I swear, that money it was almost like it came out of the air. Oh, here's $1 billion! Meanwhile, people have been busting their ass protesting in France for weeks about, like the living conditions and how people can barely make it. Anyway, honey, I've said my piece, and that's all I can say. Maybe one day I'll be able to throw $1 billion where I want it. Love, peace, and blessings. Mwah.